Welcome everyone for joining today's webinar. I have a very interesting guest with me. I'm really excited about this session. Kai, also you're from Germany, one of the great experts in pricing, sales, in combinations with neuroscience. We'll talk a bit about what that is. Really interested, not only as a pricer, but also because it's of course of immediate relevance also for our company, understanding better how the company, how to do sales, how to use also the maybe some psychological trick here or there. So those are the things that I'm really interested in. And without more details, let me, before we get to you, just 1 minute on myself and the company. So I'm Ingo, co-founder, managing director at Buynomics. I run these weekly webinars. I've spent pretty much all my professional life in pricing. Started Buynomics about 5 years ago, and we do these webinars every other week where we just explain pricing from our point of view, and the weeks in between we invite experts from the field to get different perspectives into our webinar here. And before we move forward, just very briefly, who are we? Buynomics is a SaaS solution that helps our customers make better pricing and revenue management decisions. We're building a platform, a holistic platform that allows our customers to make all kinds of decisions, not just price changes, but also promotion changes, feature changes. So everything, every offer change can be made in the platform. It uses unique technology that we develop, what we call the virtual customer or virtual shopper technology, that allows users to make very precise predictions of how sales and with that revenues and profits react to changes in the offer. It does that with very high accuracy, very fast. So you see changes of ideas that you have when you change your offer, you can see them immediately. And because you have more transparency, you can make better decisions immediately. And that typically leads to substantially higher profitability. So this is really what we offer here at the platform. Yeah, without further ado, I hand over to you. Kai, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kai-Markus Müller. I'm a professor of consumer behavior at HFU Business School. That's a business school of Furtwangen University. I'm also director of pricing research at Neurensics, which is one of the very few companies that use brain research for marketing research and for answering tough marketing and pricing questions. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to having this discussion with Ingo. Maybe as you see here, as a last point, as you see here, my recent book was published in English about 10 months ago. It's called The Invisible Game, The Secrets and the Science of Winning Minds and Winning Deals. It was published in German about 6 weeks ago, late August. And it's co-authored with a spectacular sales professional called Gabriel Reebok. Gabi has been selling basically major chemical deals and working in major B2B sales positions for all her life. And that combination of, on the one hand, a consumer behavior psychologist, a scientist with a sales professional, that led to this interesting combination of this book that we're talking about now.
Perfect. I have it here. So read it and really looking forward to get more insights on it. But before we start on it, let me just take half a step back. So you're a professional in sales, pricing. What brought you into the field? What fascinates you?
Well, that's a bit of a long story of very diverse backgrounds. Originally, I started studying psychology, but soon I recognized that I'm more interested in brain research. So I did, parallel to my diploma. Back in the days, I did a master's in neuroscience, and I also went then to the United States to do a PhD in neuroscience, which was very quantitative work. Well, we did all kinds of brain scans to figure out how people perceive shapes and faces and colors. And then I came back to Germany, where I met Ingo at my first job with Simon Kutscher and Partners, which is a management consultancy that is well known for pricing and pricing strategy. But there I recognized that in pricing, if we just, if I say, let's say we launch a new product, if we just go out and ask the right target group, what is the ideal price? What would you pay for that? Well, we don't get the right answer. Why? Because first of all, as in all of market research, people are very bad at telling what they really want, telling what they're really going to do in future. But on top, in pricing research, you also have this issue that people are not interested in telling you how much they're willing to pay and telling you their real value perception. So if you want to do value-based pricing, it's very tough. So I founded a startup where I combined brain research with pricing, and there, I used technology techniques from psychology and the brain sciences to identify the ideal price on a subconscious level without asking people. And this technology was later acquired by Neurensics, which I also joined as director of pricing research in Amsterdam. And my full job now is being professor of consumer behavior, but also working further in developing, well, brain-based pricing algorithms with Neurensics, but as well, teaching and coaching companies about using consumer psychology and using neuroscience to optimize their daily business.
And how do we have to visualize that? So what you do, you put people in an MRI scan to determine what they really feel about a price, or how does that work in practice?
Well, we do that. Interestingly, we don't do it for pricing, because for pricing we use a slightly different technology. But we put people in MRI scanners to, for example, identify. Here's a good sales example. We've very often put physicians, so doctors with a specific prescription behavior, into the MRI scanner and showed them different value messages for their, for specific potentially new drugs, and then measured which value messages would evoke the strongest desire to prescribe that drug. It's a bit off from pricing. In pricing, we nowadays primarily use reaction times. So the idea is more or less based on the relatively simple idea that I can show you different price points. I explain a product, obviously, if you know which product it is, and then I'm going to show you different price points. And then after every price point, you say cheap or expensive based on either on the buttons in your mobile device or on the keyboard using arrow keys. And that way, I can look at what you really say, but beyond that, I can also look at how long it takes you. So if I'm asking for a price that is not really cheap or expensive to you, then what do you think? You think, is this price cheap or expensive? Maybe I'll say expensive, okay?
Yeah.
But it takes you a split second longer than when it's clearly cheap or clearly expensive. So, and that measuring that, reveals a lot about the subconscious value perception of a consumer, but also of professional salespeople.
So that means when it takes long, you're close to like your willingness to pay, right? That's what it means.
It takes you a bit longer when I've hit the right price, and I ask you, make a decision: is it cheap or expensive? Then you're indecisive, and while you may or may not tell me the truth, you reveal your true value perception by taking longer.
Interesting. When I was back in university, I also worked with a professor, and he did something similar in strategy back then. So they also put, I think, for example, managers and consultants into MRI scans, and then observed how they thought about different product problems. Right. So like owners of a company, they thought very differently from a consultant about a problem, much more emotional. So they knew some decision wasn't right, but they got used to it, and so they didn't want to change their opinion. Whereas the consultant comes in and then says, okay, well, A is clearly better than B, and that actually then was used by consulting firms as a justification for them coming in, because it's often much easier for a consultant to make difficult decisions in these situations.
That's amazing. That is really cool.
Perfect. Yeah, we already got a little bit into the topic, but very interesting. And from there, neuroscience as a scientific discipline, now the invisible game, which I think is a bit more practical for sales.
Well, I mean,
What's the
I think
story?
anything I do is practical. But anyway, yes. So, what is the invisible game? Well, so basically, I'm a professor of consumer psychology, and when you're fascinated by prices, such as I am, there is a huge wealth of insights of how people decide, how humans make decisions. For example, how they are being anchored. You put an expensive product next to a normal product, it appears cheaper. Vice versa, you can put a cheap product next to a normal product, it appears more expensive. There are, lots of fascinating effects, like the tendency towards the middle, or even advanced selling techniques like using decoys, which make you decide one way or the other. But you are the best example of what is a bit frustrating about all that, because you are one of those companies that provide technology that make all those theories unnecessary, because you can simply look, having a tool like Buynomics, you can simply look what is going to happen when I change the price. What is going to happen? You have so much data. What is potentially even going to happen when the choice architecture changes? So, and you also see this in in big online corporations like Amazon or Booking.com. For them, consumer psychology or choice architectures are really interesting, but they're not really necessary, because the theory is not that relevant, because they can just test it. They can just test anything. Now, however, if you work in, say, key accounting or in the B2B sale, all these theories are extremely relevant, because you don't have 10,000 products sold every week, right? You have maybe a deal a week, or maybe a deal a month, right? So when you have your 20 deals a year that you really want to win, it makes a big difference if you win 7 of them or win 15 of them, right? And in order to win a deal, consumer psychology and the science of how humans decide is really, really critical. Because if you only have your 10 or 20 proposals that you write, you really want to struck a deal, right? You really want them to be spectacular, and you want to nudge your customer towards making the right choice. And now here, interestingly, consumer psychology and the science of human behavior and of behavioral economics, all these fascinating effects, they really come to life, right? Because you really need to understand the theory very well. You need to understand the effects and the experiments that have been done very well, in order to apply all that to the professional sale and to your proposal, to make it really good, and potentially even apply it to your relationship that you may have with your buyer.
Yeah. So okay, so that's I get that. So you say it's more difficult to measure in the B2B context, because there are very much fewer sales. Therefore, you have to rely more on theory. I would also argue that in the large scale business that we do, many of these ideas play a role, like preference for the middle and so on. So those that are real or have a strong effect, that they matter. Like people do prefer the middle option, or if you have like a good, better, best, and you highlight one of them, say, okay, most people buy this. That has a real measurable effect that you can observe with large data. And those are also things that we use in our solution.
Cool.
And so, for example, one of the observations that we see is something like a price threshold. Is when you do a survey, ask people, would you buy this chocolate bar at 80 cent, 90, €1, and so on? You see a very strong threshold at €1, 30% or so cliff. But you don't see that in sales in the shelf, right? Because there the choice is not, do I buy this or nothing at all, what it is in the survey, but it's more like, do I buy this or something else, right? And there with a large portfolio, the price threshold gets much smaller. It's still there, but it's reduced in size. So those are things that we observe with data in these cases. But I think from reading your book, you had this eureka moment that was your motivation to write the book. What was that?
Sorry, I didn't catch it completely. My what to write the book?
When you were started writing the Invisible Game, you had like sort of like a eureka moment where you said, okay, this is an important topic for sales.
Yes. I mean, on the one hand, I had a eureka moment that I'm describing in the book that was very early on, which was I was a consultant, a pricing consultant, talking about and trying to understand the sales and the future prospect of a specific medication. And what happened then was I was giving this basically this standard questionnaire approach, and was asking this healthcare manager, well, would you reimburse this drug at a price of €1 per day, or would you reimburse this drug at a price of €2 per day? And then she said €1. She said no, and at sorry, she said yes, of course. She said yes. At €1, she said yes, and at 150, she said yes, and at €2, she said I don't know, maybe yes. And then at €3, she said I don't know, would I reimburse it or not? She was hesitating, and then she said, oh well, probably I wouldn't reimburse it. And then at €4, she said, oh no, and €5, she said no. So that was the first time that I recognized, all that I had learned, and that I had applied in science all these years, for instance, using reaction times. That could actually be applied, because it was the first time that I saw this coming to life in marketing research for the first time, that somebody actually would hesitate and would take longer when I'm hitting the right price. And then I thought, well, everything that happens on a non-conscious level isn't just relevant for consumer science. It's really also relevant in a very professional B2B setting, because this was a professional healthcare manager. She exactly knew what she was doing. And it's not that interestingly, it was not that she was just giving me a rational answer the way you might think this happens.
Okay, and that, so, and how did that then lead to the book, and then also please already describe the main idea of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually wrote, the first thing was that I wrote a German book called Neuropricing, how consumers think about prices. It's only available in Germany. And Gabi Reebok, she read that book, and she was fascinating. And actually, she was trying out all those things that I'm describing, So she was starting to try out, will decoys work? She was starting to try out, will anchors work when I'm putting out a very smart price anchor to my customer? Will it work or not? And at some point, she contacted me and said she's been trying out these things, and it's been actually improving her sales, and it's been improving her relationship with her customers. And maybe I would like to collaborate on first maybe giving some trainings. And we gave quite a bunch of trainings over the years, and we optimized that. We learned where key accountants stand, and where at which level key accountants really need additional information. And then we decided, this needs to be we need to set this into stone with a book, and um, we need to really put all our ideas together and put it into a story. And that story was how the invisible game in the end was born.
Yeah. Do you have what are like your one or two top examples where companies played the invisible game and made it work?
Yeah, there's a bunch of very cool examples. Um, Well, one thing that if anyone wants to dive into the invisible game, one very important theory is prospect theory. It's basically a theory that received the Nobel Prize, and it is about the discrepancy between what real money is worth and how we feel it's worth. So, for example, um, a small gift can be really can be leading to wonderful results. But say a gift on Christmas, when you expect it anyway, it maybe is not that doesn't make you that happy, right? Because your expectation level is somewhere else. Also losses, if you lose something, then the first few euros that you lose, they hurt you very much, right? I mean, you're a successful businessman, but imagine you drop 10 euros into the ditch, and you try to get it back out somewhere on the street, and you spend maybe like 15 minutes on getting those 5 or 10 euro bill back out, so you don't lose it, right? If you think about that on a rational level, it's ridiculous, right? It's
Yeah.
your whatever you work for is so much worth so much more and has so much more impact than being wasting these 5 euros. You should just forget about it. But it's very hard for us. That's just a human thing. We don't want to lose that. So companies that apply this knowledge coming from some theory like prospect theory would be, for example, a company that had recognized that their customer would be anticipating tough times. So what they were doing, they were saying, um, let's be proactive, and let's proactively give them a free delivery this week. So they just said, we're working together. We'll go through everything together, but you'll get this week. You'll get a free delivery. This strengthened the bond very much between the supplier and the buyer, and that brought them together through hard times, and has brought them a lot of sustainable business. Sometimes it can be these very small things, right? Because
Yeah.
the small truckload of goods that they delivered, it's more a gesture than anything, right?
Yeah.
But it
I,
helped them. Yeah,
I,
it helped them go through.
I know the example. I think we had this also back in consulting, like the random acts of kindness when you give like an airline gives someone like an upgrade to business class, and then they most people will never forget that in their life. They will always hope they will always like tend to go for this airline and hope they get another one, right?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. You will love this airline. Another thing is that is if a company has been helping you out when you are in trouble, and they really solved something very tricky, right? Um, that is a company you'll be very thankful towards, right? As an example, it may be your tax advisor. You've had I don't know, you've had maybe problems with your previous tax advisor. You found one that really solved all your accounting issues. You'll be very faithful with them, and
Yeah.
even though if they raise their prices, you actually may stick with them.
Okay. Do you have another short example like that again? Also.
Um, well, let me tell you another cool story, because you've mentioned thresholds previously. So I've been working with a actually a B2B company that provides a consumer good, and but it's a financial product, and this financial product is sold to consumers, but it's sold through other channels, like through brokers, for example, right? So these brokers, they would sell this financial product, and as you said, there was a price threshold. So the company was anticipating a high price threshold at 99 euros for this specific financial product, for this insurance. And so we tested um, for the end consumers of who are a good target group and who were perfectly suited for this insurance. And what we did, we found no price threshold in their brain. So in this case, we ran a bit of a different study. We ran a brain scan with an EEG brain cap, where you measure these what people call the brain waves. um, and looking at the brain waves, you can actually see which price ideally matches the product. Yeah, it's very good from testing match mismatch reactions of the brain within a few hundred milliseconds non-consciously. Now, we measured that, and we 40 consumers underwent a brain scan, and there was absolutely no real threshold between 99 to 100 euros. Well, however, this was not reflected in the market. So this was strange, right? Why is there no threshold in the consumer brain, but it's reflected in the market? Well, in the second phase of that project, we had the chance to test 40 brokers who sell this product. And it turns out, indeed, in their brain was the threshold. They did not like the price of 100 euros for that insurance. And so this is a great example of a great company that used later these insights for training their salespeople and improving the sales and giving them the confidence to know that consumers will actually buy this product, and consumers actually don't feel like this is unjustified, which
Okay.
and sometimes this is a tricky thing, this is something that good companies need to take care of. um, if you run a good company with good salespeople, these salespeople, they will know the market, and they will know everything about that market. They will know each and every competitor out there, and probably even their prices and their price ranges, because sometimes they've lost a project, or they've won a project based on these things, and they've gotten a bit feedback from their customers. And
Yeah.
so um, um, that knowledge actually can be too much. Sometimes it's not even good if you know so much, because if you do know that somewhere in the world there is some company that potentially offers something similar at maybe a few euros cheaper, then you are starting to be afraid, and then you're starting to not be confident in your sale, and
Yeah.
that's of course disastrous. That is
Yeah.
not what you want, right? So you have to understand that people don't just buy for the price. They buy for many reasons. They want to have a long-term relationship. They want to have security with their suppliers and so forth. And that is something that good companies really should look at, and should be working at, to give their salespeople confidence.
Perfect. I think looking at the watch, the time's already progressed much faster than I anticipated. Maybe just to close, if so many of our listeners are pricing, revenue management, salespeople, um, what would you, if they want to use the Invisible game more to their advantage, what should they do? What are resources that are relevant? What are trainings? What should they do to make it happen?
Well, I mean, first of all, the book is available. Yeah, we both hold it up in the screen. It's called The Invisible Game by Kai-Markus Müller and Gabriele Riebock. That's the first thing you can do. You can look at the book. You can also give us a call or send us an email if you are interested in knowing more, in potentially getting one-on-one coachings, or in potentially getting a workshop. Well, the last weeks I've been holding 2 fantastic workshops and consulted a company that does also basically specialized IT projects and digitalization projects. And this is what we do basically on a day-to-day basis. We help companies, to improve their invisible game. If you just want to get started, feel free to link in with me, follow me on LinkedIn, or check out my website, www.kai-markus-müller.com. If you Google me, you'll just find me right away.
Perfect. I give one question from the audience, and so salespeople maturities are different. How do you avoid or educate your sales team to mitigate price erosion in long-term price agreements?
Whoa, I'm not exactly sure what the first part of the question
I think the
has to
focus
do
should
with the
be
second
on the
part,
second part, yeah.
but let's look at the price erosion. So there are various ways to deal with price erosion, and I think one of the most important messages you should take home with you is that price and product are an arbitrary association between a number and a thing. And our brains are very, very susceptible to influences that change this arbitrary perception. So, if I, for example, give you a high price anchor, your price perception will go up. If I give you low price anchor, your price perception will go down. So if your buyer keeps asking for discounts and discounts, and that's the only thing you hear, your prices are very much in danger to erode. But if you say, for example, I'm managing a team of salespeople, but I'm not letting mentally these discount anchors sink in. Instead, I set my own anchors. I keep talking about how there's inflation. Or for example, I'm maybe in a market where, say, another market leader or another big player announces something like loans go up or raw material prices have raised. You shouldn't, in this case, go to your customer and say, "Oh, look, we won't raise prices. Don't worry." No, you should somebody is giving you the chance to really play along, and you should say, "Look, even potentially even the market leader here has to raise prices. So we are very sorry. This will also come up in the near future." So if you keep working towards higher number perception in your sales team, higher number perception on the buyer side, you have quite a strong point in avoiding price erosions.
Okay.
And that's really psychology.
Perfect. I hope that was helpful. So thank you so much, Kai, for this interesting talk. Would love to continue this, at some later stage. Maybe you have time for another webinar at some point.
We will.
Really looking forward to that. Thank you very much for your discussion, and also for the audience. Thanks for participating. And if you want to reach out to Markus, you can do it directly to Mark, or you can also reach out to us, and we'll forward it. Before we close, just quickly on our next upcoming webinars. Next one's also a special one, Pricing Horror Stories, where we go through our Halloween special with a number of cases where pricing didn't go so well. Some of these are well known. We also have some that are less known, but not less entertaining. So looking forward to that. Then the next one's pricing tools, more on foundations, what tools are available for pricing. And then we have another guest webinar on how to build effective SRM organizations with Colin McQuaid from Nestle USA. Also looking very much forward to this one. So thank you everyone for attending. Thanks, Kai, and everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingo. Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye, everyone. Keep in touch via LinkedIn.